Hello, my name is Stephen Upton and welcome to my Honda CTX 1300 video blog part 3. In this short film I'm going to cover one or two items that I covered in the previous ones and give you updated information, and also to give you some new information, things that I've discovered since owning this bike. We're now filming this early in November 2017. That means I've actually had the bike now for a little over 10 months. And in that time I've covered something like 1,800 miles. I know, not a great deal by many people's standards, but behind me here I've got another bike which is a 2-year-old Honda CB1100. And in 2 years that's only done just over 1,000 miles. But there you go. So, the first thing I want to talk to you about and show you is how I've remounted the Tomtom 450 GPS. The standard fitting kit that came with it is a ram mount that enables you to mount it high up near the clutch reservoir, and I didn't like it. It was completely obscuring the left hand mirror, and although I live in England where we drive on the left, which means the right hand mirror is the one that's really useful for overtaking, there are times when a left hand mirror can be useful. And next year I do intend taking this bike to Germany, so therefore I'm on the wrong side of the road. Left hand mirror will be very useful, and completely losing it behind the GPS, I just didn't like it, so I've moved it. Let's show you where. The original mount in place was right here, a ram mount that replaced this bracket, and it put the GPS right there, which initially I thought was a really good place because it was near my left hand and I could use the controls. But we've got a mirror down here and my line of sight completely obscured it. So what we've done now is I've moved the whole mount down here, and you can get a ram mount that replaces one of the 4 bolts that holds the handlebars on here. And now it just slots on there and it's absolutely perfect. The angle the camera's looking at it is not the angle I see it when I'm riding. I've got the GPS and the clocks just above it, so it almost looks like a single dashboard there. Absolutely perfect now. The ram mount, nice and simple, just replaces a bolt and can be moved in a matter of a few minutes. So GPS away from the standard place, smack bang in the middle there, exactly where I like it. So all of my instruments and the GPS now are in one view, directly in front of me, just below my screen. And I think that's the perfect place for it, certainly for me anyway. So that's the GPS we've moved. In one of the previous videos, can't remember if it was part 1 or part 2, I mentioned about the top box. And I said in, I think it was part 1, that I thought it was pretty naff, that you couldn't even get a helmet in it. Well, I later discovered you can actually get 2 full face helmets in it, and I believe I corrected that in part 2. But what I did say was that I couldn't understand the purpose of this handle. Didn't seem to actually do anything. And then somebody pointed out to me that it actually does do something, because you can remove the entire top box. Hey presto, it disappears. Now that actually, you think, why on earth would you want to do that? But what it gives you is a big flat area here. If you wanted to carry something that won't go in the top box, where do you strap it onto? Perhaps across the pillion seat. What if you've got a pillion? What you've now got is this platform, so if you've got something that's far bigger than your top box, you can now tie it down onto there. And also I think the bike actually looks quite smart like that with no top box on. It's whatever you like, but very simple, very easy. The handle is actually there for a reason. You can remove the top box. Maybe you could even use the top box like a suitcase and literally walk off with it now into your hotel, and there you go. Top box just comes off in one big lump, and I'm presuming we'll probably go back on just as easily. There you go, it's back on. Just unlock that, put that down, and that now hopefully, yeah, absolutely solid. So it is actually a better design than I thought it was. So sorry Honda if I misled anybody in my last two videos. The handle does a job, and it means that the top box can act like a little suitcase, or you can just whip it off if you don't want to take it with you. Okay, that's two items. We've moved the GPS, and we now know that the top box comes off really easily, and what the purpose of that handle is. The next item I want to talk to you about is the rear suspension. I did report in my very first video on this bike that right from the get-go I felt the suspension was rather harsh. Compared to all other bikes I had, I found that going over potholes sent quite a jar up my spine. I spoke to Honda about it. They said the front suspension can't be adjusted, but the back one can be. So I decided to leave it until the first service. Take the bike in at 600 miles, get it adjusted, obviously then problem solved. But it wasn't that simple. Took the bike in for its service, I asked them to adjust the suspension. I noticed there was 5 settings, and it was set to number 1. And it appears that Honda send these out of the factory all set on number 1, which is the hardest setting. So I asked them to adjust it to number 3. When I went to collect the bike, they said they hadn't adjusted it because it needs a special spanner, and they haven't got one. Now, I have to confess, I didn't think a great deal of Honda. That a Honda main dealer doing servicing on this bike tells me they need a special spanner to adjust my suspension, and all they said was, we haven't got one, so we ain't done it. I'm thinking, customer services should say, we haven't got a special spanner, so we've ordered it, and we'll give you a ring, and you can bring the bike down when we've got the special spanner. No, they didn't do that. So I got to looking at the suspension myself, and I started thinking, how hard could it be to move this? And I'll show you in a minute. It's actually quite easy. There's a big enough gap to get your hand in, and I'm not exactly small, I've got quite big hands, and I found I could move it slightly, but I couldn't get enough grip to actually twist it from 1 to 2 to 3 where I wanted it. And I noticed there's some holes around it, and lo and behold I had an Allen key, a nice big chunky one that fitted in those holes, and I managed to move it round. So I adjusted the suspension both left and right at the back from number 1 round to number 3 using a big chunky Allen key. I know it's not ideal, but it worked. And I found now the bike is so much better. It makes a huge difference. Go over potholes, it absorbs it, rather than my spine getting a jolt. Since doing all that, I've discovered something else. If you've got one of these, don't use a big chunky Allen key. Look in the left pannier, and I'm going to show you something now in the left pannier. Okay, here we are, left pannier. Unlock it. It's going to be a bit clunky because it is a bit clunky, and I'm also doing it single-handed. Now then, they're very crafty. I'm going to put a torch on. Right there is a toolkit. It's in black, in a black interior, so it's nice and camouflaged, and that's the excuse I'm using for not finding it. But inside there, guess what they've got? Yeah, you've guessed it. Oops, where we are, back on camera. Guess what they've got inside of there, in the toolkit? A suspension adjusting spanner. So Honda, listen here up. If you're a Honda main dealer and somebody brings one of these bikes in and say, can you adjust my suspension? The answer isn't, oh, we ain't got a special tool so we can't do it. The answer is, yes, no problem. Are you aware that in the left pannier is a toolkit and there's the spanner? So let's have a look at the suspension. Just in front of the panniers on both sides. Very easy to see. It's just in here, you can get your hand in, and you can see there you've got the adjustment 1, 2, and it all goes round to 5 actually, and further down you've got the holes that the spanner goes on. Same on the other side of the bike. And now that I've adjusted mine from number 1 to number 3, it's absolutely perfect. Okay, back to the GPS for a moment. One problem I found was, although I've resighted and I can see exactly where I want it now, it's just there in arm's reach, I can't hear it. Cruising along, even at only 50-60 mile an hour with wind noise, even when the volume on the GPS was at maximum, you can't hear the thing. Also, you can't use another facility it's got, that's Bluetooth in your telephone into the GPS to take phone calls. Problem solved. I happened to be in Canada in September, just dropped by bike dealers, as you do when you're passing, you see a bike dealer, a bit like iron filings to a magnet. Straight in, had a look round, and I come across this. I don't like full face helmets, as I said. I like half face ones or open face ones, and I come across this helmet. It's actually made by Senna. It's called the Cavalry Bluetooth half helmet. There you go, Senna. And this is a really good helmet. It's the type of styling I like. Fits on there really nicely, tightens up, but it's got a great bit of kit built in. Bluetooth.
Hello.
There you go. You switch it on, it talks to you. You can Bluetooth this to the Tomtom, and the Tomtom is Bluetooth to my mobile phone. So somebody calls me, the Tomtom recognises it and channels it through to this. But what's really clever about this, just turn it off for a second.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Not only does it talk to you, but you've got speakers built in left and right just above your ears, and really clever, just above your forehead there's a microphone. These are little sound reflectors that you just push in, you can take them off, or they have bigger ones if you want to completely cover your ear. So I've put these in and they work perfectly. I don't know about you, but you can buy a lot of stuff today that you get it and you're disappointed. It doesn't seem to work the way you expected. This works far better than I ever thought it would do. I've tested this at 70 miles an hour, got my wife to telephone me. It comes through so clear you would not believe. And I said to her, are you getting a lot of wind noise with me talking to you? And she said, no, not at all. 70 miles an hour, she could hear me very clearly. So if you're like me, that I don't want to keep looking at the map, I want some verbal instructions as to which way to go, or there's a turning coming up, you need a Bluetooth helmet or some kind of Bluetooth earpieces. I don't know if these are available in the UK, but they do have a website. But Senna make a fantastic Bluetooth helmet, and I'm fairly certain you can buy full face ones if you prefer full face, but if you're like me and like an open face helmet, you like the wind in your face, the bugs in your teeth, this helmet is absolutely magic with the Tomtom and my iPhone all Bluetooth together, and she even talks to you.
Hello.
Hello! How good's that?
Goodbye.
Amazing. That's all now on my part 3 of my CTX 1300 video blog. We've moved the GPS, we now know that the top box comes off and the handle has a purpose. We now know how to adjust the suspension. Honda sends it you on number 1 and I'd recommend number 3, it's a lot more comfortable. And by Bluetoothing your phone, your GPS into your helmet, everything's wonderful now. I've done about 1800 miles in 10 months. The more I ride it, the more I like it. So if you're thinking of getting one, I actually recommend them. Honda CTX 1300, a nice bike. Great to ride. Does everything I want now. Thanks for watching.